Hey everybody, welcome back to Birds of a Feather with Dustin, apparently now, aka the Pursuer. Sewer.
Look, it's all I could come up with. All right.
It's cool, man. Apparently you didn't like the closer, so we're gonna go with the Pursuer. What up?
Yeah, it's just all I could think of was the actress. Can't remember her name.
Yeah, right. I know what you're talking about from the closer.
Yeah.
That's all right because sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. You just roll with it. AKA the Unraveler coming at you as well. It's great to be with you guys. We're looking forward to this episode. I am going to start the timer 30 minutes right now so that we don't go over. So yeah, Justin, great to be back with you. Boy, we've been having this issue with our uh, our furnace, our heating furnace for the house.
Oh
And
no.
I've never had one before, so I'm trying to figure this out as I go. And the water's just pouring through. It's like leaking everywhere. I'm trying to figure out how to get this thing to
Like
stop.
in your house?
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. So
Well, that's not good.
no. It's not good. Not good. So it's like the picture right now behind me, upside down. Apparently, that's what I'm feeling right now. So that's what I'm going with. But
It is very
hopefully,
apropos.
yeah, right. Well, hopefully we fixed. I did the YouTube thing, and apparently sometimes just cleaning the mineral deposit and stuff will help fix that. So fingers crossed. But we've had like four lakes down there, so it's been at first we thought maybe it was our neighbor coming in underneath, the water coming in underneath the cement, but nah, it doesn't turn out that that's it. So that's good. At least we don't have a crack in our foundation. Anyway, what's up with you? What's going on?
Not a lot, man. Just same old thing, business and the kids and um still still reading. I'm reading a lot. I picked up the Pursuer. The reason I chose that is because I just picked up The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. Have you ever read that?
Long time ago. Yep.
So this is my fourth time going through it, and it is very hard. It's almost impossible for me to read any Christian authors anymore because it just sounds so alien and weird.
Yep.
In fact, I gave like 600 books to a friend of ours. He drove down here and picked them all up in boxes. But Tozer, man, there is something about Tozer that I just really appreciate. And the way he writes and his authenticity. And, that guy he began to pursue mysticism near the end of his journey. And he got booted from a ministry that he began. And he just was an interesting guy. And The Pursuit of God is just a pretty powerful book, man. I have to sift through some things and assimilate some things just based on my own pursuit and ideas. But anyway, yeah, it's a good book. I'm really enjoying it.
Cool. Interestingly, I continue to open my mind to consider what Christians are saying because, again, it's been around this long and they keep trying to come up with arguments to prove the existence of God. And of course, that's currently my passion is demonstrating that that's not valid and doesn't happen. But just recently, I decided to check out this long video by Michael Behe, John Lennox, and Stephen Meyer, where they're interviewed on the evidence of a creator. And of course, the argument from design is basically what their argument is. That's
Yeah.
simplistic, of course, and they use a bunch of math and all kinds of things to try to demonstrate it. But it's fine. Like here's my problem, and this is my issue with the argument from design, and I had the same issue with Don Preston when I was online discussing this with him. I can grant you the argument from design, not that I think it's valid, because I think there's plenty of reasons to not think that the argument from design is valid, but I can grant it to you. Like I can just be like, okay, great, I 100%. Let's just say you're right. There is a designer, and you've just proven it. I won't even make you prove that argument. I'll just grant it to you. You still can't prove that which God that is. You can't
Oh,
even prove that it's a god. All you can prove that it's a designer. I mean, it could be my cat. Like we don't know anything about this designer. So it's very, very frustrating to me that when I say prove Yahweh exists and they say, well, the argument from intelligent design, and I'm like, that doesn't prove what I asked you to prove.
yeah, there's massive, massive, massive leaps in logic in those kinds of conversations. It is very much like when I was discussing the historicity of the literary Jesus. And if you ask someone, prove to me that this literary Jesus exists, what evidence other than these gospels, other than the Bible, what evidence is there that this literary Jesus ever existed? And you get the same two quotes every single time. And the first one is from Josephus. And it's so funny because it's like one or two lines. It's so minimal. And all it does is mention a guy, and that's it. And they will say, you see, Josephus mentioned a guy. So the literary Jesus who raised people from the dead and was God and healed sicknesses and cast out demons and was crucified and resurrected, he must exist.
Right. Well,
And
the
I'm
other,
like,
yeah.
you went from a name, a reference from a name, all the way to that.
Well, the other large problem with Josephus even is even if Josephus, let's just say Josephus was 100% credited as saying the uh, Flavianum statement,
Right.
right? Even if you could, the problem is he wasn't a contemporary of Jesus.
Correct.
Everything he is writing is based on hearsay. It's what he heard, and we know that people exaggerate and fish stories get bigger over time, and there's no way of knowing that these people who are testifying are telling the truth, or even if they got hoodwinked by somebody named Paul that tricked everybody into following the. I mean, Josephus, or not Josephus, Joseph Smith. Years later, people are saying, "Oh yeah, no, we know that he had witnesses." No, you don't. You weren't there. You're hearing third hand. So there's no way of knowing that that would have been
Right.
accurate anyway. So that to me is very frustrating. So all what I'm asking for is contemporaries of Jesus
Yeah.
outside of the Gospels, and there are none. So to say, oh yeah, but people mention him, in the third century and the 16th century and the 21st century, that doesn't mean anything. I can
Yeah.
mention Goolings and they don't exist. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, man. Have you seen the movie Heretic with Hugh Grant?
Not yet, but it's on my list.
Bro, it is, I will make the claim, it is in the top three all time in the horror genre as far as movies go.
Bro, thank you. All right, good. Now you've just inspired me. I think
It
I'm gonna
is
go right now, actually.
it is a brilliant, brilliant movie. It is unbelievably creepy, and Hugh Grant's role in that movie is stellar. But there are so many parts that your mouth is just going to drop, and you are going to appreciate it. I don't see how any religiously bent person can come out of that movie and not feel uncomfortable. So I'll just leave it at that. It is a brilliant movie.
Oh, well, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just watched it for the third time yesterday.
wow. Okay. Dang, dude. All right, sounds good to me. Well, I'm also in addition to considering all the perspective and trying to see if any other form of evidence ever pops up. I'm now also venturing into the alternative side and trying to figure out what is truth and where did this all come from. And obviously, it hasn't been figured out. There's still the great I don't know question. It's this is the greatest possibility we have right now, and more likely a probability. But even that, like energy, for example, as the source of all life, that's even contended by some because of entropy, which means that or that energy eventually, when there's no resistance to it, it becomes moot, so to speak, and it no longer works. It's still there because energy can never be created or destroyed. It just changes form, and eventually, like when the stars burn out, the energy is gone, and it just becomes cold like the rest of space. So there's nothing for it to work, and so it just lays dormant. Um, so they say, and our planet, our universe is moving at a more rapid speed towards entropy than ever before, and then you add to it dark matter, which is pushing the galaxies away faster and faster. So you have all these fears of it could collapse on itself and become once again a singularity, or it could completely obliterate it and throw everything apart. You could have the great heat death, where everything just like it dies of heat. And then you can have the ice, the other version, where it just completely freezes. So there's all kinds of scenarios as to what could be happening. And so everybody's having fun trying to figure it out. And what atheists come at us is they say, hey, not atheists, sorry, theists, when they come at us, when I talk, they're like, well, see, all these things are wrong, so therefore God. And I'm like, no, that's not the way this works. Like, you can't just make up something because you don't know the answer, or that you don't like this answer, or that science hasn't provided it yet. You don't get to just run the other way and be like, got it, God. That's, I mean, I can just say unicorns. I mean, it's so silly. Um, but the thing is that there's a major difference. What I'm discovering, and have discovered, but it's even becoming more and more prevalent in my mind. A huge difference between how theists argue their point and atheists do is atheists will say this is probability. Here's our theory. This is what we think is most likely based on the fact of energy and the fact of gravity because we know it exists and we've seen these things and we see how matter and energy work together and can be used interchangeably and we see all these things and so this is our most likely probability. But at the end of the day, we don't know for sure, so we're keeping our minds open to be flexible. The theist says, aha, you don't know, so therefore, I know that I know that I know that I know. And their argument is just simply, I know that I know. Well, how do you know? Just because I know. Well, how? Because I have a personal relationship with God. No, you don't. No, you don't. This is so frustrating.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw, I don't know if you saw I know you saw one of them. I had a couple of conversations with some people on your feed, and I asked both of them the same question because they came on and told you you were wrong, and how dare you say the things you say and all that, because they have a right to say what they say, but you can't say what you want to say on your own Facebook page. How dare you, Alan?
Right, right.
Um, but I went on and just in real politely asked, um, will you give me the standard of evidence by which you determine what is truth? And this was two separate conversations on completely different days. And I don't know if you saw, but both of them said exactly the same thing. They said, "Well, I know because I experienced this and this and this and this." And they gave me some examples, and they're the same examples that you and I would have said back in the day. Oh, well, I felt Jesus in my heart, and I experienced his love and all those kinds of things. Um, and then they said, and the other standard of evidence is the Bible. And I said, okay, that's great. So would you be willing to tell me that your standard of evidence for what is considered truth is experience and your source document? That's the standard for evidence for what is truth. Both of them saw what was happening. Both of them did not want to say with any certainty, but that's an important question. If you're going to tell me that you have the truth, then you clearly have a standard for how you got to that. And so finally, both of them admitted, yeah, yes, that's the standard. It's my experience, which is undeniable, and the Bible, which is the source document. And I said, okay, that's fantastic. So are you willing to apply that standard equally across the board to all worldviews to determine what is or is not true? And they had to say yes. Otherwise, it's a double standard. It's hypocrisy. And they said, "Well, yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to do that." And I said, "Okay, so let's look at Mormonism. The very first question you get asked once you're handed a book is did you read it? Yes. Did you feel anything? In other words, it comes down to experience and source document. It's the same thing with Buddhism. It's the same thing with Hinduism. It's the same thing across the board. And eventually, man, I tried to be very, very polite with both of these people, but I just kept telling them, look, if you're going to tell me if A is the standard of evidence for what is truth, this is how you determine truth, then A has to be applied equally across the board to get to B to C to D. That's just how it works. You can't tell me that A works for you, but it's B for everybody else. That's not how this works. Well, man, both of them ended up messaging me privately. And I had long
Really?
conversations.
Okay.
Yes, I had long conversations with both of these people.
Nice.
One of them, who I think you know pretty well, admitted to me that he is completely unsure about truth at this point. He admitted it because if he is going to say this is how I determine truth, then I've got to be willing to apply that to everybody else. I mean, that's just how it works. And he said, but I'm actually not willing to do that. I'm not willing to apply that across the board equally. And I told him, thank you. I really appreciate that honesty because most people aren't like that. And we had a great conversation, and he told me I'm going to have to rethink some things. I don't know. I don't know where. And he asked me the question, what is your standard of evidence for truth? And I told him, I have no idea. I, I have no idea. But the thing is, I'm not the one proclaiming to have the
No,
only
exactly right.
truth.
Correct.
And so I don't have the onus to defend that because I'm not proclaiming that.
Correct.
I will tell you what I know is not true.
Yep.
I can tell you that, but I don't know how I would determine what is definitively the truth. I just don't know how I would do that. And I think that may be a pursuit am on forever. The other guy, man, this was so interesting to me. Devout Christian, um, has YouTube videos up and does ministry and all this kind of stuff. Admitted to me, well, yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that would mean other people's views are true. And I mean, it took me a second, and I was like, so are you going to keep preaching Jesus? Well, yeah. And I was like, but why? I don't understand why you would preach Jesus as the only truth when you just told me that this must mean that other people's perceptions are true. And he was like, well, it must mean somehow, some way that all of those things lead to Jesus. And I was like, oh man, wow. I mean, at least he got that far, you
Sure.
know? Um,
Sure. The mind virus
it,
is super strong, bro.
man, it is. Yeah. But you bringing that up, that pursuit of where did things come from, I don't think we'll ever know. I don't.
No, well, probably not. Probably not. I think the best we can, and the reason we can't know is because number one, we weren't there, and number two, life is always in flux. There's always new things being presented that we hadn't seen before, and so that's why I have a whole chapter in my book called Fluid Dogma because you got to grow with the new information. If you remain stagnant, you remain a Christian. I mean, that's what it come, or any religion you're in. You refuse to change with the new knowledge because you're just stuck in the brainwashing, and it's sad. So when you were talking about experience and what was the word you used for
Source document.
source document, whatever. You can each both of those are synonymous with faith.
Correct.
It's
They
exactly
are.
the same thing. So
Yeah,
you're trying to make it sound like your argument is stronger than it is, but it literally is faith. Like that's all it is. Your experience is faith because if you apply it to everyone else, it comes down to the same thing. Well, they just
it
believe.
does.
Of course, they just believe it. You just believe yours is right, and they believe theirs is right. So I have this whole section in my book where I talk about how if we were to take faith as a method by which we were to determine truth, because that's really what religion does,
It
use
does.
faith as their method. Um, they don't want to admit that, but that is the method. That's the only method it has. Even though they try to venture out and use empirical evidence, but it always falls short, and they know it falls short. That's why people like Don won't respond to me or have a public debate with me, even though I've challenged him privately and he'll ignore me. But he'll be the first to take a debate about anything if he knows he can win. But when you tell him to prove Yahweh exists using the empirical argument, silence, right?
Yep.
Or slavery for that matter, defending biblical slavery.
Which should be so easy to do.
It should be theoretically.
Should be
God
so
actually,
easy to do.
right. If you're going to start with empirical evidence, I need you to finish with that. Because if you're only going to take me halfway, there was a waste of my time. So essentially, what you have, and I'm going to help you out if you're religious, especially if you're a Christian, here's your argument faith. That's it. That's all you have, and you need to stand with that. Because at least if you stand with that, here's what you can do with it. And it's a problem in the end, but here's what you're going to have to do with it. You're going to start with saying, oh, do you believe that Sally has an invisible friend? Well, if she believes she does, I can't argue with her experience because I had my own experience. Okay, great. So Sally says her friend is God. Well, no, that can't be right. Okay, so now you're deciding that faith is going to have some qualifications or some they're going to eliminate some possibilities to faith. So no longer can invisible friends that people have that claim that they are God can be real. Okay, so now you don't have it. So now you can allow other types eventually, so you're going to end up eliminating and qualifying faith all the way down until all you have is Yahweh. And what you're going to end up saying is my method says Yahweh is true because faith requires Yahweh be true. And you end up with circular reasoning because that is the only way to respond to your second friend there that said, but I'm going to keep preaching Jesus because I think he's right. Everything leads to Jesus. Well, sure, it all leads to Jesus if you're going to qualify it that way and you're going to require everything become that one circular argument because that's all it is I want faith to believe Yahweh exists or Jesus exists, and that's what my faith does, and no other faith is possible but my faith in God. It's so circular, it's so ridiculous, but when you're in that matrix, bro, and I have a picture of it in my book, it's like you're like it's like you're being beat around. You just cannot get out. You are just mindless zombie walking around the bases, and there is no escape until somebody opens that door and says, "Hey, there's a world out here." You know?
Yeah, yeah, man, it's a uh man, I just have a real deep empathy for people. I do, because you and I understand what that is like to be trapped um in that box, and to know that the walls are there and you cannot move past them. And then for some, and I think some are fine with those walls. They need them. That's just how they are. For some like us, there comes a moment in time when there is a chip in the concrete and a little bit of light shines through. And when that happens, there is this weird moment in time where you cannot ignore what you just saw or heard. And
Though you
although,
try, though you try.
and so you try and stay in the box for a while and you're bumping into the walls, eventually though, you can't.
Your eye's
Eventually,
always drawn to that light, right? It's always drawn to it.
you're always drawn to it. And so eventually you take a little pickaxe and you start chipping a little bit more at that because you want to see what's on the other side. Well, what is that?
Yep.
And when you talk about your pursuit of origins and things like that, I was just telling my buddy Raphael the other day, um, it is it's tiring sometimes because there is always another Pandora's box.
Right.
And so to your point about us never, we both said we will probably just never know. And to that point, even some of the greatest minds in the world who are objectively pursuing truth, not based on a bias, but who are objectively pursuing truth, they admit, man, every time we think we come to a semi-static understanding of things, something else happens and we realize there is this entire galaxy of information that we've never even considered.
Yep. I mean, just take into consideration this whole idea of entropy, right? And eventually we're going to hit maximum entropy, and the whole idea is that we will cease to exist in some way. In a closed system, that is correct. But what Christians only know how to live within is a closed system. So when we
Mm,
present the idea that no, there could be a multiverse out there where through quantum physics the entropy could balance each other out and we could be having energy particles bouncing back and forth. It could be quantum tunnels, black holes. We've yet to understand totally what they do, and you could be having energy particles passing through the black holes. I mean, there's so many possibilities, and just because we don't know doesn't mean it isn't possible or even probable. Um, but these are all possibilities based upon things we do know, and it's
yep,
out there. And I'm saying eventually more is going to reveal itself. And when that wall breaks down, we have to open our mind to it and say, hey,
yep.
This is how we solve it. I mean, there's just so much, and I'm just learning now, and I'm just like, I'm way behind the curve, man. Like, holy
Man,
cow.
you and me both. I know.
And I'm getting stoked about it because now I'm studying like a fiend, and I'm like, good Lord, all I ever knew was God. And I poo-pooed everything out there. It just didn't, if, evolution, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
energy, come on, God is energy. I mean,
Yeah.
God is energy, and I hear that argument a lot. Okay, well, think about it. If God is energy, then why does it entropy? So you're telling me God becomes stagnant and can't do anything anymore, can't perform work? That's silly. So God can't be energy. That's completely illogical. You
Yeah.
know, so then you have to ask the question, where did energy come from? If it can't be created, God didn't create it because can't be created, and it can't be God. So energy by itself contradicts the concept of God. It just doesn't work. Does that mean energy is the only answer? No, there could be something else entirely. But
I
energy
know.
is a contradiction to God that we just have to consider. You know, talking about this whole like faith thing, and making the determination by faith and the relationship with God that I said earlier. No, you didn't. I said no, you don't have a relationship with God. There was a study done, and I heard about this on atheist radio or atheist debates podcast or whatever, one of the shows that I was watching, and I can't remember where what it was called off the top of my head. Nor do I even have the study. I have actually looked for it, and I can't find it yet. So if anybody out there listening can find this study, I would greatly appreciate it if you can send it to me, because I would love to be able to confirm that it's even accurate. I hope it is. But we'll just do this as a fun little exercise if it's not accurate. But if this test is true from what I've heard, they did the test, and what they did was they were able to have uh, signals sent because they connected whatever to the brain, signals sent to computers or whatever to be able to observe the data that was being sent when they would ask questions to people, which parts of the brain the answers would trigger. And when they asked a question about self, they said, "What part of your brain, tell me something about yourself or whatever." They would say something about themselves, and the self part, this one part of the brain would trigger. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Tell me about your friends, Stephanie, whatever. And another part of the brain would trigger, right? And they would ask questions like that in the same two parts of the brain and other parts. And they would say, "Tell me something about God." You know what part of the brain would trigger? Self. Poof, poof, poof. Isn't that fascinating?
uh,
That's kind of creepy. It starts to tell you that like you have a relationship basically with an invisible friend that's yourself, what you portray God to be. That's what we've been saying all along. And if this study is true, holy crap, do I want to get my hands on it?
yeah, that's a trip, man.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So anyway, yeah, I'm really enjoying this study and just learning all these things. I mean, dark energy is just kind of a blowing my mind concept. Like that's so cool, and they don't even know anything about it. Like they just kind of named it, but they're still trying to understand it. All they know is that there's something pushing stuff apart, and they can see that it's happening, and it's happening at an even more rapid rate. So there's all kinds of issues, and I've been throwing out some theories of my, or I shouldn't call them theories. They're not technically theories until they're demonstrated through experimentation,
Hypotheses.
but I have a hypothesis. My hypothesis at this point that I'm kind of throwing out is that there's an ever evolving energy is an ever evolving multiverse. In my book, I originally said energy is an ever evolving universe, but the more I'm studying now, I'm like, yeah, I can see how that could be a problem because our universe is a closed system if you just think of it as one universe. But if it's an open system, there could be multiple universes, and as I said, they could be doing different things. So, for example, uh, one universe, ours, could end up becoming the big what do they call it? The big I forget where it closes up. There's a term for it.
Oh, not a black hole. Uh,
No, the
it's just,
term
yeah, when a star collapses.
for some reason it's not coming. The big crunch,
Okay.
called the big crunch, right? And basically it comes back to a singularity. There's also the big freeze. There's also heat, the heat death. So let's just say
Supernova.
oh no, supernova. Okay, so there's
Yeah.
different, right? So there's different types of universes, and let's say that ours ends up in the big crunch. Another universe attached to ours becomes the heat death, and another becomes the ice freeze or whatever. If you merge all of those together, they actually create energy because it forces against each other, and it creates that tension that
Mhm.
makes it work again. And what you have then is heat and ice, so to speak, or heat and cold working together within a crunch. And what do you have? A whole new universe. And so what you have is cyclical. And this is also a theory in science that I was reading about that I didn't even know about until after I come up with it. I was like, oh, there's oh good. So scientists are actually contemplating this. So cyclical universes. So you have multiple singularities always happening constantly in all new universes. So it could be an eternal energy that has constantly been doing this through multiverses. Like, can I say I know that I know that I know that I know? No, I don't know. I have no clue. I'm having fun guessing right now because I have no clue, but I'm guessing based upon things that have been proven scientifically to exist. So I have something to work with. This isn't just faith. This is evidence that I'm basing my thoughts upon. And I'm also not saying I know that I know that I know. I'm just saying here's a hypothesis. So, yeah, arguing from faith that you absolutely know something. Wow, dude, that is a mind trap. And it's one that I was stuck in for over 40 years, and you as well. And there's the timer. But I'll let you close us out with whatever final word you want to say to that. Go ahead and take a minute and then end the show, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to maybe pick back up on that on the next squawk because that's I mean, well, quantum sciences are, man, I've watched three lectures on quantum science this week, and I just sit with my mouth dropped on each of them because there's just so much, man, so much unknown. But this idea of faith, um, which comes down to experience, it always comes down to experience, and then something that you said though is I think is important. Even if I said I know that I know that I know, even if I said that, the difference between what we would do and what religious people do is they then force that paradigm onto the entire world as the only way to understand or to live morally or to have truth or to be justified or to be accepted or to have the ability to live joyously. They are the only ones who say those kinds of things. I would never do that. Even if I said, I know that I know that I know this, and someone said, I don't agree with you, I'd go, oh, okay. And that's the big difference. And so I don't know that I know that I know. I'm realizing I don't know, don't know, don't know, don't know. But even if I did, forcing that onto someone as an axiom for everything is abusive. It's manipulative, is what it is. And so they have the onus to prove. And our very first squawk, you said something. I know I'm running out of time. On our very first squawk, you said something that stuck with me. If someone is going to prove something, then they need to prove it beyond any shadow of a doubt, as though they were in a courtroom, as though their life were on the line. There needs to be evidence beyond any shadow of a doubt to acquit them of any wrong. Then I would look at the evidence and go, that's that's undeniable. That's overwhelming. I acquiesce. You are correct. I am not. I acquit you. You are right. I am wrong. That's how it should go. But they can't do that. It's impossible. You cannot defend a fairy tale.
Yep, you're right. And with that, we will see you all on the other side 1 week from now. We'll pick up right there because I love this where this is going because this is an important topic. So, um, you guys have a great week and make sure you like, subscribe, comments, share, keep us rolling. Let us know your thoughts because we love interacting with you. So, have a great week, guys. Bye.
Bye.